Greetings, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Not Funny Guys Presents Andor Rewatch Season 1. And we are now moving into our third arc. Yeah, third arc. I guess that's where we are. Last time we looked at the announcement, which saw Andor having his worst day ever kind of moment. Well, we're going to pick that back up, of course. Because this episode is Narkina 5, and this is the same of the planet he is going to for his fun times. You know, his true home away from home, vacation from your vacation experience that the Empire has to offer. So this originally aired on October 26, 2022, written by Bo Williamson, and directed by Toby Hayes. So Cassian is brought to the artificial island of Narkina 5, discovering that it is basically a hard labor camp with thousands of other prisoners. He ends up meeting the prisoner floor manager, Kino Loy, more on him later, who runs and rules the prison himself. When they're in, basically, they don't have a lot of guard interference. They are driven by keeping themselves on task, and basically they rely on people like Kino Loy, who are kind of like slave managers, you might say, if you wanted to use an old Southern plantation method. The old Southern slave manager was typically a slave who was put over other slaves to kind of manage them. That's kind of what Kino Loy does. He's a prisoner too. He works with his fellow prisoners, put together specific machinery. We don't know what that is yet. We will find out. Meanwhile, Vel and Cinta have traveled to Ferrix to search for Cassian. They're trying to hunt him down, as we talked about in the last episode. We see that Marva has become ill, and Bix is looking in on her. So is Brasso. Nice to see some of these people back again. Bix goes to contact Luthen about Cassian's whereabouts, but Luthen, worried about being exposed and anyone being monitored, mainly it's Clea, shuts it all down, doesn't respond. He then leaves, Luthen leaves and Coruscant and ends up going to meet with Saw Gerrera. So we see an old face here from Rogue One. Luthen attempts to hire Gerrera's rebel cell to act as air support for a raid on an Imperial power station on Spellhouse, organized by Anton Krieger, another one. But he gets turned away. Meanwhile, Dedra Miro questions Cyril Karn about his experiences on Ferrix, mainly because he keeps lodging complaints, trying to get somebody's attention. He's very dogged and annoying. But she declines to offer, basically allow him to help her in the investigation. And then she now leads up the unit on Ferrix, where she appears and has brought about the apprehension of Bix. They got Pax as well, the people who were operating the transmitter. So let's talk a little bit more about the insights, because we're building here at this point. Starting on Coruscant. So we're going to start with, of course, Cyril toiling away as a cog in the machine, brought in for questioning about the whole Ferrix situation. Apparently he's been complaining, submitting reports, trying to get people's attention about Cassian Andor. He's now put in 6 reports, which Dedra is aware of and annoyed by. Cyril is very obsessive. He's still maintaining this obsessive streak. Now the ISB he's got on their radar, and not in a good way. Cyril even gives him Blevins' report to read, because he signed it but never read it, what happened, and he will later point out a bunch of issues with this. Miro presents the issue of the stolen materials, including the Starpath unit and the connection to Luthen and Andor. They are calling Luthen, so they don't actually know who he is. They know who Cassian is. They don't know who Luthen is. And they call him Access. And she is presenting him as basically the person controlling and presenting and sharing and distributing all these materials. And so this is what the ISB is referencing. Not a bad name. She's requesting materials that Wolf Yularen reads off from the committee to dig out the situation on Ferrix, with the purpose of locating Andor and through him hopefully Access, aka Luthen. Cyril is, of course, when she goes back to him finally after this presentation, is astonished by Blevins' report. He actually talks about he did have an encounter with Luthen, doesn't have much to give them, has more, of course, about Andor, told to basically stop filing requests. The other people are handling this. Leave it alone. Of course, he still doesn't know how to let this go. He sort of has this sort of misguided sense that merit and hard work in the Empire will be rewarded. In this case, it won't be. The Empire doesn't care about him. And he doesn't seem to quite understand this. In fact, he's trying to sort of position himself to offer himself as a partner to Dedra Meero, and she's not interested. Meanwhile, also on the planet, we have, of course, Mon Mothma and Perrin holding another party. She's there to basically whip up votes for the Gorman situation. Tay, of course, is there, and they're meeting, and he's been having issues with the new banking regulations, and Mon Mothma is seen talking to a group of senators about the new P.O.R.D. regulations, and everybody has kind of like a mix of views on it. Nobody's viewing it necessarily as a net negative. We do learn, though, through conversation that Mon Mothma has been on Coruscant basically since she was 16 when she was elected senator. So very young, very similar to Padme Amidala, sort of like that. So, and of course, her and Perrin have actually been married since she was 15. That was arranged. We do get the message on the side of Luthen from Bix, which Clea is the one who intercepts it. She won't. No, they don't answer. They don't trust things now that the ISB is putting their hands on things, and he shuts down the comms. So that basically gets us up to date on the Coruscant end of things. Now, over on Narkina 5, where I think we end up spending a lot more time next episode, we get to see Cassian being loaded up and shipped off to Narkina 5. It's a moon with basically artificial island prisons on it. It's actually an Imperial factory. The prisoners are managed there. They don't have any shoes because the floors are electrified. The guards wear basic like insulated footwear that protects them, but that's how they control people. Their motivational thing is that they electrify the floor. They can punish you. They can even kill you with it. They use the term on program, which is where they basically tell you to get your hands on your head in a presentable fashion. There is a short-handed nature to the guards, that the floors are short-handed. There's a very obvious hint early on that there are not enough guards to be doing the work in this place, and Cassian takes note of that. That'll become later, more important later on. He's taken to his workroom, joined with the cohorts. This is where we meet Kino Loy. I'm a big fan of Kino Loy. You don't see it now, but you will see it later. And of course, he is played by the ever-talented Andy Serkis. So, great Star Wars role for him. And he's a bit of a taskmaster, as I was kind of saying before. Andor is assigned to Table 5. Kino gives him the rundown about how things work, and that everybody's in a competition. The tables are in the rooms are in competition with each other, and the rooms are in competition with the floor, and then the floors are in competition with the other floors. Everybody's kind of kept in this like mousetrap of constantly go, go, go. And of course, Kino is fully in charge of his room. Once the guards drop him off and leave, Kino is basically fully in command of him. And like I said, a weird game competition kind of thing. It's a kind of taskmaster system where you're not allowed to focus on thoughts of escape because you're constantly having to compete, like Squid Games, I guess would be the more modern kind of thing. You're not going to necessarily get killed, but you could. They won't care if they'll replace you. We meet the members of his table. Probably the most important one for us is Melchi, because we will see more of him. We've already technically met him in Rogue One. So he is a character we will see more of. They're at the same table. Of course, Cassian's still going by the Keith name. He's been assigned to basically the table that's currently losing. And when the day ends, they are put on the middle of the floor and they all get shocked. And the building has some weird, they're building up some sort of weird piece. This is the thing, is that we will find out ultimately later what this weird things that they're kind of manufacturing repetitively, but the whole focus is on productivity. And like I said, the table shot 5 gets shocked, and when you see them later in the hallways, they all have this look about them like, ooh, because he's already got it once when he came in. This was something that happened in his introduction when he first met the guards. They tested him to let them see the ship, how this works. So he gets it twice in a day. Now they go to the barracks, these barrack-like accommodations for them. But before we get to that, while they're in the transfer tubes, they have to wait, and they're there with the day shift and the night shift coming on. And apparently you can see that some of the people have begun developing some sort of sign language to communicate with each other between floors, because they are very isolated. Like, the only people you really have any real communication with are the people at your table while you're on shift. When you're in the barracks, you might have some conversation with other tables, but then ultimately you have no other real conversations. So you're very isolated. When they get back to the barracks, the floor is also electrified there. So you get in your cell and you can't get out and walk about. And they say if you sleepwalking, you might be dead. They even ask at Cassian, since he's one of the newest arrivals, about the whole P.O.R.D, the new prescriptive, basically enforcement regulations. And he doesn't know anything about them. He hasn't heard anything. They think they're rumors. So they're relying a lot on rumors, and misinformation is spreading all around. And Melchi basically tells him, like, forget it all. And apparently it's obvious that Kino sees him as a troublemaker, because he breaks up this conversation not too long. Now, while we're here on Narkina 5, we see him go to bed on his first night, and then we jump ahead basically 30 days or 30 cycles, 30 shift days, they say. Cassian and we see him on his floor. His group is getting showered, and then they get like this sort of steam shower thing dropped on them. And now Table 5 has actually gotten ahead of the game. And so they actually see them win a day, which is good for them. And then, of course, later that night, somebody from Table 3, for some reason, steps on the floor and gets killed. So that's kind of where we leave things on the Narkina 5. Now, over on Ferrix, we see Brasso passing the Imperial HQ, goes to see Marva. Bix is there. Marva has not been taking care of herself. People here on this planet do kind of watch out for each other. And apparently she's been trying to open the old floodgate under the hotel. She's trying to help things for the rebellion. Strangely enough, this will actually help Cassian later. They talk about the Daughters of Ferrix, her being a past president, coming to help her, but she won't accept their help. She's not taking care of herself. She's not heating her house. All this stuff. We then see the whole connection with Vel and Cinta there watching Marva, looking for Andor. Cinta has decided to take a job, and therefore it would look really weird. There's two of them, so Vel has kind of said, you can go back. I'll keep the eye here. And they end up having a conversation about their whole relationship and about how they have decided their relationship takes a back burner. The rebellion comes first. Their relationship comes second. Cinta even makes a crack at Vel about being that she, when talking about who you pretend to be, she's like, I'll be a real rich girl running away from my family. And this is a hint at Vel's past and family, which we will get to see more of. Bix, of course, goes to the shop, Pax shop, tries to do the contact with Luthien. That doesn't go anywhere, gets shut down. The Imperials have actually now traced the thing, and they've come to Pax Yard. They arrested him. They traced the comm. They're looking for Bix. They grab her in the crowd. After they spot her, she tries to run and everything. She gets taken to the hotel where DJ Miro is now there with a doctor. And Miro specifically lets her see Pax, who they've apparently been torturing, and then has him taken out of the room. And that's where we leave that situation. The final thing we touch on that I want to touch on is the whole Saw Gerrera of it all. Now, we have Luthien on the Fawn door, goes to see our, shall we say, old Clone Wars rebels and Rogue One friend, and I use friend in square quotes, Saw Gerrera over on Segra Milo. We meet up his little partisan group. Luthien plays coy about the Aldani raid, like nobody's trusts each other thing. He's trying to recruit him to help Anton Krieger, that whole bit there. And there's a whole idea that everybody's at odds with each other. He offers to give him the equipment for free, by the way, if he'll help Anton Krieger. Men are at odds. Saw has always been a loner. He names off all these groups and says they're all lost and that he's the only one who has clarity of purpose. So it's like this idea, you very much get the idea that he's a zealot, which is not too far off of how we always have sort of come to see Saw, particularly if he saw Rogue One. Wants to know what Luthien really is. He doesn't quite understand Luthien. Luthien says he's a coward, basically says he hopes he's not too late to do something. Of course, like I said, Saw ends this sort of conversation with a very obvious, arrogant statement that he's the only one with clarity of purpose in mind. But that brings us to the end of our episode. Next time, we'll be looking at episode 9, Nobody's Listening, and then One Way Out. And so we've got a kind of extended arc here. So we're going to have 2 more episodes in this arc before we finish things out. But we'll continue to see the development of what happens both on Coruscant and Narkina 5, particularly Narkina 5, as we will see the sort of, shall we say, evolution of Cassian Andor. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, follow along, comment, all that fun stuff. If you want to, go check out our podcast. We have our newest one. We're so mercifully close to getting to the end of Rambo. Please, quick. But we have our movie podcast, Off the Reels, where you can see all three of the not funny guys, Casey, Eric, and myself. And then Casey and Eric have their own little podcast, Wrestling with the Horde of All, dealing with wrestling and horror movies. You can check that out as well. And as I've been hinting, there is coming soon another podcast with a new member of the Not Funny Guys that we will be bringing in. But that is to come. We've had some scheduling delays. So check those out as well. All that's down in the description below. And until next time, stay safe and long live the Republic. Say Not Funny Guys again.
Not funny guys again!
No, can you say Not Funny Guys?